When a person of means passes away, trying to sort out who gets what is always going to be a mess. House of the Dragon. I've lost count of the episodes. Eight, I think. I think it's eight. Yeah. Anyways, so this had some really interesting aspects to it while also reiterating some of the things that are frustrating me a little bit about this show. I think I actually want to get the frustrations out of the way so that they're done. So the continued time jumps. This one, I think it was 6 years. It it really does feel like the show at this point is doing something that I can understand on paper, but in practice, I find distancing in terms of my investment in anything going on. What they appear to be doing on paper is leaping to the next major key pivotal event that will actually redirect and reshape how things are moving forward for these characters and for line of succession at the various places that are up for grabs in this world. And on paper, I get that. And I do get that for some of these things, that amount of time has to have passed because new people have to be born and they impact things. Some people who are younger have to be older so that their opinions are going to carry more weight and we can kind of see who they've become as they become a bigger player in all of this. So, like, I get it. But at the same time, it's very strange to open an episode just telling us that a major character who got a little bit of a highlight last episode is now about to die. And given the fact that we didn't even see him, I'm going to assume is going to die because, you save a little bit of money cutting your actor early if you don't need to show them in stuff. So I'm just assuming he's gonna die at this point. And so you open by telling me that when, like, I feel like a more natural storytelling thing would have been to, obviously in this case, because of the time jump, you can't do this directly from the previous episode. But in general, that seems like the kind of thing that you would end a previous episode with, him getting injured so bad it looks like he's going to die, because that would give you all the tension of, ooh, how's this going to impact things next episode? Instead, we start the episode opening up, this character is now on their deathbed. Oh, and I'm already like, oh, okay, all right. And then the additional thing with the time jump is the kids get recast again. And for how far they're leaping ahead, rightfully so, I get it. But at the same time, because I had to basically sort out who the heck was who all over again, and I've mentioned before, I'm much better with faces than names, and the faces keep changing, but the show is kind of pivoting and depending on me remembering the names since the faces are shifting with each time jump. And so as a result, there was a huge chunk of this. I had to pull up summaries and synopses to try and backpedal and realize precisely who was being talked about to inherit what position and precisely who was opposing them. I got the general drawn lines in terms of the families. I got which families, basically all pushing for themselves. I got that part. But they were tossing out these specific names like, well, this one wants this. So this one says he's going to do this. I'm worried about this one doing this. And like half of those were characters who now have new faces that I'm seeing for the first time. I'm like, crap, which one was that again? So like it just makes it harder for me to engage with this, to the point that it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to realize that the character introduced with the eye patch was not a brand new character, but was instead that kid who got his eye cut before. Which, like, as soon as I realized that, I smacked myself in the forehead and I'm like, oh, of course that's who that is. But at the same time, like, I have no investment in all these new faces, and it just makes me have to reinvest all over again, and it's throwing me off. Again, I get it. I get it in terms of leaping to the next thing that will actually alter the direction or impact the plans that these people have. I get it. And I know that the my being better with faces than names thing is a me issue and not everybody has that. But this is the experience I'm having. And it's kind of frustrating. A little bit. But moving on from that, a lot of what went on here was quite interesting, and it went down better than last episode. Last episode, I kind of noted that, like, I'm starting to feel like maybe I don't care who wins amongst these people. I'm kind of ready for them all just to fall apart. Here, I'm not going to say I started rooting for somebody, but people's actions felt less, well, across the board at least, felt less vindictive and inflammatory. And I got that sense again that there are some amongst this group that are trying for a resolution that, yes, is in their best interest, but will also result in the least trauma in terms of trying to handle succession of the Iron Throne or Driftmark or wherever. There are some who are trying to give the most peaceful resolution possible, and yes, it would also benefit them. But having somebody actively working for what will be the least damaging outcome helps, even if they're going at it for ultimately selfish reasons. So I think that helped a bit here, because I wasn't getting that last time too much. And there's a number of specific scenes that I think are handled really well. I continue to have the most sympathy for the king, for Viserys, because you see him kind of light up a little bit when he sees his grandchildren. And then I like to think, at least, it was their presence in that intense need to keep his family close and to do, because that's what he cares about, his family more than the kingdom, and not in a I want my family in power way. And like, these are my kids, my grandkids. I love them, and wanting them to just be a family. But this is Westeros. That ain't happening. But I sympathize with that. And it kind of made it really cathartic that he made the effort to not only get to the Iron Throne and get to the throne room, but to walk there. Not be carried, but to walk this, what was probably for him, interminable distance, with a cane and a mask to hide his illness as best as was possible. And that was really good. That was really well done. And I love how it really hadn't occurred to me that might happen. And B, how much his presence immediately threw a wrench into the plans of about 3/4 of the people in that room. That just made it all the better. Because I felt like I was seeing him gather strength for the sake of his family, and that felt good to watch. But at the same time, watching everybody else and watch their brains go into meltdown mode on their faces as they're like, oh no. That was great. I loved that. And I also, Daemon is growing on me. Not that I've ever disliked him as a character. I mean, I like Matt Smith in general, so that helps. But he seems to have not abandoned his very aggressive approach to everything, but he's gotten a little bit more discretionary in terms of when he deploys that, so that he'll show his brother that kindness of helping him up to the throne, because he knows that as immediate family, he's one of the few people that he would accept that help from. And so he does that, and he has this little moment for that. And then once somebody steps out of line, somebody who was egged on by him directly, he then just lops the upper half of the guy's head off. Oh. And yeah, I also like that swords were immediately drawn on him. They were like, disarm him. He's like, no, I did my piece. I'm good. Because he's not going to face lasting consequences of this. The only way that would have happened was if he caused a bigger scene than just that. Because if he does just that, he can claim it's what had to happen given the accusations he just made. And I thought that was what you wanted to happen given what you had just said. So, he can get out of that as long as he doesn't make a bigger scene. And he doesn't. Like I said, he hasn't softened at all, but he has gotten a little bit more clever in how he is a vicious, vicious dude. So I dug that. I'll tell you what was a scene that I really appreciated and was incredibly well balanced, I felt, in terms of making it clear how wrong what was happening was. The scene with the queen and the maid who is telling her that the prince, her son, forced himself on her. First of all, nobody tell me that the show has to show sexual assault. They didn't here, but it was immensely clear that not only did it happen, but it was incredibly traumatic. You could tell from her retelling of it. And she didn't even tell about it graphically. You could just tell from how just shaking, scared, terrified of everything she was. You could tell how bad it was. So don't tell me we need to see it, because we don't. The message is incredibly clear about what went down and how bad it was. So first of all, thank you for that. Now, if some people feel that this is a plot point they rather wouldn't have had there at all, I'm not going to argue that. But I am going to say if it is going to be here, this to me proves that Game of Thrones knows you don't have to show it. Okay? Remember that going forward. Show, please. Anyway, so there's that, first of all. And then there's the queen. And her reaction, her response, because like my brain went a million ways with how she might respond to this. She might appear to be consoling and then order her killed. I kind of doubted that, given that I wasn't sure she was prepared to go that vicious, but this show, I knew it was a possibility. As it started to get going, I thought, oh gosh, is she gonna gaslight this woman into sort of drill into her head? No, that's not what happened. You did lead him on. It was this, and she doesn't. And not that that would have been an invalid thing to depict. It happens. But that, for me at least, would have been so uncomfortable, I might have had trouble getting through it. What we get instead, and it's played incredibly well, is this sense of she knows that if it was literally anybody else other than her son, this would not stand. This is horrible. But at the same time, it is her son. And so she presents to this woman very real truths about the likely outcome of her telling more people, of her going public, the doubt that would be cast on her. The people would believe or rumor or at least try to present that it was something she brought on herself, that he would not be taken down by this. And all of that is probably true. But at the same time, we know she's deploying this not as honest advice, as a means to protect her son, who is very much proving to be a bit of a monster. So it's that twisting of truth, and it's that use of empathy to get someone to do something wrong, something they shouldn't have to do. I find it really compelling. The last time I saw something do this really well in a way that really unsettled me was the third season of Infinity Train. I would tell you go watch it, but HBO friggin' obliterated it because they suck. But if you want to see my review where I talk about it, you can see that there. Third season of Infinity Train had a character who twisted other people around her into being their worst selves, and she did it through empathy, genuine empathy. And it was disturbing for me to watch, but in an incredibly compelling and well-executed way. And this, while not quite at the level of Infinity Train Book 3, it did remind me of that. And it's why I feel that this scene was played very well in terms of what she did to get this girl to do what she wanted. But you could also tell, like more so than was the case in Infinity Train, even at least initially, she knows this is wrong, but she's going to do it anyway. And that's another shade that I'm appreciating, is that there's at least some of these characters who understand that the things they are choosing to do aren't actually okay. Because most of the characters in a setting like this will rationalize that away. They will say, well, I'm doing what I have to do. therefore it is okay. And others realizing, like, I'm doing what I have to do, but it's messed up and it's not okay. And I desperately would rather this not be the case. And I get that from the Queen, and I enjoy that push and pull, that dichotomy. It helped. It helped make this episode feel like it is giving me a better understanding and giving me more of those, not only between the house struggles, but the internal struggles some of these characters have. Because that's honestly going to be one of the more compelling things, because it gets me invested in these characters specifically. Because as far as the houses in general, I know what houses were or weren't still around, and what family lines were or weren't mentioned in Game of Thrones proper. So I kind of know what's going to happen to a lot of these bloodlines. So trying to get me invested in the lineage, and I think that's part of why the the time jumps in the recasting of characters, especially the kids, isn't really working for me, because I have a hard time getting invested in these characters, either liking or disliking them when they keep changing. But you get me invested in the struggle, the personal struggle, the internal struggle even, of these characters. That's what I'm here for. That's what I can think back to of, like, sort of the initial hook in for me with Ned Stark was. Because he wanted to do what was best for his friend. He wanted to do what was best for the realm. He wanted to do what was best for his family. And those things frequently did not line up. And seeing that every choice he made was difficult for him, and seeing where he ultimately landed when the chips were down, was really compelling. And while I don't think anybody in this show is doing that as strongly as they did with Ned Stark in the first season of Game of Thrones, I'm getting shades of that with some of these characters, and I like it. House of the Dragon, what'd you think of this latest episode? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills around here and enables me to do this as my living. Any amount that you can send my way is of immense help. Things are end of the year. Things tend to be tight. So I would really appreciate it. But, it's also okay, because like, share, subscribe, engagement, that helps too. Don't worry too much about any of it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here. So you can come on back next time you need a break. All right, time to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Loli, Becky Sparks, Fernobulax, The Poodle, Zach, Bookworm, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, Brendan LaRose, and TT. Thank you for your support. If you want to hear me try and say your name while this little guy tries to chew on my earrings, well, you can check out the Patreon for the support tiers that get you a shout out. Thanks so much. You are a pain in my butt.